Welcome to the Imperfect Dads Podcast.
I'm Justin.
And I'm Devin.
We believe dads care deeply about their family and kids,
but they don't always have a space to discuss what their life looks like.
Our podcast is a space for dads to discuss the ups and downs of fatherhood.
And how they feel like they're holding it all together.
Or how they're not.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. On this episode, we have on Will Johnson. Will Johnson is the lead singer of the bands Centro-matic and South San Gabriel, and he's also played in the touring bands of Monsters of Folk, Overseas, and is currently in Jason Isbell's touring band, The 400 Unit. He is also a painter and an author. We talked about managing screen time with your kids, taking the family on hikes. Will shares a lot of stories about his own childhood, our mutual love of having a soccer game on in the background on the weekends, the adjustment period when he gets home after being on the road, and the challenge of figuring out how to recharge. Make sure to check out Will's new album, Diamond City, wherever you listen to your music, or order it online. And also just like one more thing.
Dad, just start the episode.
Oh, my bad.
How about how many kids do you have? What are their ages? All that good stuff.
Oh, we've got 3. One turns 20 today.
Well, congrats.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I don't know how we got here this fast. I mean, we were literally just in like, please clean up your Legos phase not that long ago.
Yes.
And so, and now, you know, he went on the road with the 400 unit a couple of weeks ago, interning and helping out as a tech, helping out with drum teching. So, boy, it's a little surreal how we got here so fast. But at any rate, so 20 for the oldest, and then we've got a girl that is 14 and another girl that's 6. So they're kind of spread out in their own, you know, they're just kind of on their own planes as far as what they're interested in and what they're doing. So they're the Venn diagram of like, hey, this one stole my Star Wars toy or something like that is they're just kind of in their own realms right now, age-wise and vibe-wise, which most days is brings a lot of peaceful waters. Other days they can bicker. But yeah, our oldest, he's grown and out of the house. He's in 2 really great bands and thriving in that regard. So at any rate, there's our 3.
That's awesome. I have a 9-year-old daughter, 7-year-old daughter, and 3-year-old son. And it's still surreal to me to think of my oldest daughter being 10 next year.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, like 10 is one thing, but 20 is another. Like, oh, you're an adult. Like you're a real person. Like, how's it feel for him to enter into a new decade?
Oh my goodness. It's, you know, well, things really hit hard a couple months ago. We were down in Mexico City for a show with the 400 unit and Centro-matic, and we went to see Lucha Libre wrestling the night before, which was wonderful. It was just like enchanting and super fun. And so it was my wife and our son. He's my stepson, but I mean, I've been in his life since he was 1.5. So I don't know. I call him my son at this point. But so at any rate, he takes off for a minute during the match and comes back and he's, you know, holding a couple of beers. And it's like, did you just buy me the first beer that you just bought me your first beer? Like, thanks a lot, you know? But it was kind of a revelatory moment, without a doubt.
Can't even imagine that moment of right now, you know, you can have the kid walk to the fridge, pick out a beer and bring it to me. Yeah. But it's a little different than like, you know, clinking the glasses together and being like, all right, man, thanks.
Yeah. He went and stood in line and came back with beers for us. It was really charming and wonderful. I loved it.
I'm still like anticipating. I still remember like, you know, turning 16 and getting my driver's license. I'm the youngest of 3 kids.
Yeah.
And like my mom being like, hey, can you go to the grocery store and get this for us? And like that being this excuse to like feel like an adult, you know, get in the car, drive it and all that. And my mom being like, well, that's convenient. Like, that's nice.
Yeah. I was told it gets easier and I don't know that I fully believe that, but there are definitely moments where it does get a little easier here and there.
Our daughters are like 23 months apart. So they're very close in age. And for the most part, they play well together. And like we have a pretty good sized basement. So they'll like go down in the basement and play Barbies while I hang out upstairs with my son because he's at the age of how he plays is mostly destroying things. Yeah. And that doesn't work well with Barbies for some reason.
No, it doesn't.
So I'll just like be upstairs and I'm like, I just get to hang out with this guy, listen to some music, you know, pick up the house and play with them while the girls are creating a world downstairs. And I'm like, Oh man, 5 years ago, I would have never have thought like any of this was possible,
Yeah,
but it does get a little easier as they get older.
I think so in some ways. I mean, we're in a pretty intense phase with the middle kid right now because she's wrapping up middle school and about to start high school, and there are just some natural anxieties and adolescent kind of ebb and flow happening right there. So the highs are really high and the lows are pretty intense. She's currently grounded from her phone just from, a little attitude back on Saturday. With that comes, I see it like clockwork. I can see how it's going to pan out every single time that any of them are grounded from their phones. There's the hate and the resentment
Uh-huh.
period, and then that kind of washes away, and then they're living in the moment period, and then there's kind of this new awakening that happens in like day 2, 3, 4, where they're centered and they're present. It makes you wonder why you got them a phone at all, but obviously it's a bit of a necessary evil at certain junctures. But I'm sort of watching that play out at this point, and I don't know, as challenging a weekend as it was with some of that, we had a super good like daughter date night
Oh,
situation
that's
last
great.
night where we just snuck away and watched the Minecraft movie, which was
Nice.
super fun. And every once in a while, you just have to put all that stuff down and go out into the world. And I always sort of joke like there's no pissing and moaning like the pissing and moaning you're gonna get when you say everybody put your phones down, we're going on a hike. But then there's no joy quite like 15 minutes into the hike when you're actually there and everybody's just in the moment and it's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah. We have those moments a lot with like our oldest daughter is starting to gain a lot more independence and wanting more
Yeah,
independence because she's
yeah,
9. And like, yeah, I'll be like the two littler ones be like, hey, we're going to go to the zoo. We're going to go to the science museum. And the oldest one will be like, I don't want to do any of that. And I'm like, we're still going to do it. And then we go
yeah,
there and she's the one who has the most fun. So
exactly.
it's a weird moment to like make sure to keep like a kind tone in your voice, but you to
Yeah,
learn that of like, we're still going to do this. This is going to be fun. Like there's going
yeah,
to be a lot of fun to this as your kid looks at you and goes like, I hate everything. And you're like, you won't in 10 minutes. And I'm believing in that more than in your tone right now. So
yeah.
here we go.
That's right. And then you have, it's tempting to get there and just point to the scoreboard the whole time, but you have to find ways to just like avoid that. But we watch it like clockwork sometimes, and that's usually the way it kind of pans out. But I always enjoy it when, I hate the process that I hate the cause for grounding one from their phone, but 3 or 4 days in, I quite enjoy the energy and the vibe around the house.
Yeah, I mean, even if like you looked at me and you're like, hey, Devin, I'm going to detox you from your phone for like 4 days, I'd
Yeah.
probably throw a fit too. So, like,
Yeah.
you understand it. I also know the benefit of not being on my phone, but so much of our life is tied to the screen and feeling responsible to it. And like you have to respond to things that it's really hard to not assume that that's going to be like detrimental to your life if you aren't somehow on your phone at all times.
That's true, and I'm fully accepting of all charges and indictments for being on a phone or being on a
Yes.
screen. Much of the time it is necessary for work or, endeavors such as this, but other times it's not. So I've got my own work to do in that regard too.
Mhm. Yep. Where do you live? Where are you guys based out of?
We're south of Austin, about 35, 40 minutes, kind of between a town called Kyle and another town called Lockhart. So we're very rural, and we left Austin about 3 years ago. And we were kind of at a juncture where our middle kid was starting middle school, our oldest was graduating high school, and it just seemed like a clean break. We loved Austin. It was a great era, great chapter. While a lot of people sort of make sport of bashing or
Mhm.
making fun of Austin, I'm not going to do that. I think I'm really grateful for the time we had there. But we're my wife and I are both. We grew up kind of small town and rural, and we just wanted a little bit more space for the family. And we found an old farmhouse with a little bit of land and chickens and lots of critters around, and we were just smitten with it. So we made the leap. So we're kind of country people now.
How good are you like with your hands with like building stuff or being like independent with like home repairs and stuff like that?
I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm not a master, but I'm okay. And one thing about living remote is that little by little, sometimes you don't realize it even when it's happening, but little by little you start to get better at those things for the sheer nature of lack or at least thinness of services. And so sometimes you just have to learn how to fix things yourself out here, and that's okay. But I always joke that every storm kind of tells a new story with this house. It's very old. It's 1895. And so there are times where it's like, well, a leak or something like that comes up and we need to at least fix it in the interim until we get, can hire someone on to fix. But yeah, we've learned how to do a good number of little things ourselves. But yeah, you just incrementally and over the years, you start to develop a little bit of that industriousness and pick up some tricks of the trade. I got very familiar with fixing a riding lawnmower. I
Okay.
guess it was about this time last year, maybe a little. I mean, I remember it just being deadly hot and being underneath the thing, sort of like cursing the skies, but also kind of thankful that I was in the situation. It's like, all right, it's time to learn how to do this. There's no other way right now. So,
Yeah. Well, it also feels different because, like, I don't know how much, like, it feels like such a definite dad characteristic these days that most of your YouTube search history is how to repair or how to
that's
fix
right.
things.
That's
But that
exactly
is
right.
pretty much all of my, like, YouTube-ness is like, my garbage disposal is making this weird noise. Do I need to change it yet? And, like, it's a fun Google search.
I love it. Yeah, my YouTube history tells the story. I mean, without a doubt.
What did Will have to fix this week? Here
Yeah,
we go.
that's right. It's an open book.
Yes. Whenever you were growing up, did you spend most of your childhood outside? Like, is being outside something that feels very, like, natural to you?
Very much so.
Okay.
I grew up in a little town called Kennett, Missouri, and
Hmm.
it's in the southeast part of Missouri. It's basically like extended Mississippi Delta.
Yeah.
And our house, we bounced around a little bit, but the house I spent the most time in as a kiddo up there backed up to a cotton field. And the rules, like I had a few neighborhood friends, but really like the rules were pretty loose. It was like you could
Hmm.
go play and use the field, like even the farmer of the field, the owner of the field allowed us to play in the field, which was very generous because kids can mess up some crops. But we were careful and respectful, but also the rule was, be back by sundown and, be back in time for dinner. And that was kind of it. So I had a lot of free reign over the immediate area, which was agricultural, but also at a pretty early age, my mom allowed me to just take my bicycle downtown and hang around on the little like classic town square and drink Slurpees and eat lick a mix and stuff like that. But most of it was outside. I mean, it was either like pickup games of football or basketball or riding bikes around town. I have memories of spending time or occupying myself inside, but more of it was outside for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Now that you have kids, does it feel like if that was your childhood, even coming back at sundown, would you want that for your kids? Or are you a little bit more like, you can stick around a little bit more? Like, how do you interpret your childhood to your children's childhood, you know?
So that's interesting. This goes to a conversation on a very like cerebral and like
Yeah.
detailed group chat that I'm on with a bunch of close friends, but we're just sort of comparing and contrasting phone use and screen time and iPad stuff of today to
Hmm.
our Atari 2600.
A little
And
different.
a little different, of course. But then again, like, is it? I suppose it is because it feels more, controlled by it feels more controlled by corporations
Hmm.
and statistics and algorithm, and probably the puppeteers are not the best people in the world.
Not so much.
So in those ways it is different, but in other ways I'm finding some similarities of like I remember when I would just want to watch MTV all day
Yeah.
or something like that, or play Pitfall or River Raid,
Uh,
and this goes all the way back to even the introduction of the novel or something like. I think there were people that thought, well, we'll never get anything done now that books are going to be produced into the world. People are just going to sit around and look at books all the time. And so I think the panic exists on different ways, but the message is sort of similar in that you got to put the thing down and just go out and interact with the world. And so we try to encourage that for sure. My wife and I we follow along the same lines philosophically as far as screen time goes. She's way more gifted as far as like keeping a good eye on the clock and making sure we're kind of holding to it. But with that, yeah, we definitely try to encourage outside time. The only one difference though with our layout here versus mine that I told you about is that we are given some nice like free reign over the neighbor's land, which leads down to a creek. So there's a little bit of room for exploring and such there. But otherwise, we're kind of surrounded by these pretty busy like no shoulder country roads
Yeah.
that are real bouncy and kind of like moon patrol style roads, and people drive pretty reckless on them. And so that's, we steer away from that, but we definitely try to make use of the immediate surroundings as we can.
Growing up, my parents, being the youngest of three, my parents didn't really like set timers or like expectations for screen time for me because they both worked full time and, busy lives. And that definitely feels different for me where like, if the kids get home from school and they're like, hey, can we get on a screen? I'm like, you can do it for 20 minutes and let's figure out what else to do.
Yeah.
Where like I would get home and my parents wouldn't be home until 5 or 6 or something like that. So like I should have been doing homework. I was watching TV and playing video games. And I'm like, I know that's not like, I went the extreme overindulgence and like, you can do it moderately and it's fine. But I also know how, go ahead.
In the middle of all that, did there ever come a point where you started self-regulating where it's like, okay, I've kind of gotten my fill and I can like, or was it always like, man, I've got 40 more minutes. So I'm going to use every single second of it.
I would say that I definitely needed guidelines and rules because some kids can self-regulate themselves in which they're like, oh, I'm done here. I am sadly the type of person where if you put a full cake in front of me, I'll look up and be like, did I just eat half a cake by myself? I'm going to regret this later. So nope, that's also fun to like learn your kids and be like, all right, this kid definitely needs a timer set. And once there's a rule set, they will follow it. But if I leave them alone, they will overindulge in some way because it's just a lot of screens and stuff are kind of built around how do I keep your attention for as long as possible.
Of course.
So like you were saying, the people who make video games aren't hoping your kid looks up one day and says, I'm kind of bored with this. Their hope is, how do I make sure this is all you think about? You spend more money on it. You buy it whenever we release a sequel, you buy the sequel. How do we embed ourselves into your like natural habits? And I'm like, you don't have my kid's best interest in mind. Why would I expect you to? You're here to make profit and entertainment.
Yeah, that's right. We definitely interact with that a lot. Our 6-year-old is already kind of reaching the foyer of some of that. And we're having to keep an eye on a number of those things. Like we're not super into the YouTube thing unless it's like an interactive, if it's like an interactive dance video or something like that, I can get into that. But for the greater part, we're just discovering like we should probably rip some of this stuff away right now just before it really blossoms into something troubling.
It's we spend all these episodes interviewing dads, and almost every dad is very, very, very cautious of YouTube. Like no one is like, go have free range with YouTube. Every single dad is like, you can do it on Saturdays from these hours to these hours, and your mom and I have to be in the room with you because it just links to so many other videos. Like I also am cautious of all the content on YouTube for my children.
It's terrifying too, because you can approve of a certain thing to watch and walk out of the room for literally 6 minutes and come back in and it'll suddenly the polar opposite of what you wished for or what you permitted is suddenly on the screen.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that kind of keeps me up at night a lot of the time. It's just like how quick it can change and how the kid is still just sitting there with mouth open, just taking it all.
Just consuming.
Without a doubt.
And like, I'm from Indiana, so I'm a Pacers fan.
Yeah.
And like, even things like I'll put on like the NBA playoffs because it's playoff time right now. And like, it'll go to commercial break. And I don't know who creates the ad blocks for like commercial breaks, but like you'll have like a horror movie ad in there. And I'm sitting there with like my 3-year-old and I'm like, did you just watch like a bloody face appear for half a second? Oh my gosh, I'm becoming this parent now. I'm sitting here terrified of commercials.
Yeah.
This is my life now. Good to know.
Yeah. Well, you're not alone. I think we're both probably traversing some of the same terrain without a doubt. And it is, we're not going to stop it, but we can do our best to at least like reduce some of those possibilities or, try to change the landscape a little bit here and there. The hardest part, going back to what you're saying on the Saturday thing, like the hardest part is sometimes the weekends. You inevitably have some things that you want to knock out or house chores or projects or whatever, and you just need a clear path for even an hour or so. And sometimes that is the challenging part, is finding the thing that is suitable to you as a parent. Hopefully occupy them for that time where you want to get the things done that you can, but also like inevitably there's something will arise to where that's just not the case. And so then in my estimation, and a lot of the time what we'll do is like, well, let's just get in the car, we got to go. There are times where we may not know where we're going, we're just leaving.
Yes. Yep. On the weekends, there'll be times my wife, who works full time and works a pretty serious job to support a family of 5, will be like, I just need to like catch up and look at what my calendar looks like for the next week. And I'm always like, okay, my options are turn on the TV for an hour so they can watch something and be distracted. I can do something. My wife can do something, or just go take them to the library for an hour. Your wife only needs hour and a half. This is a much better option. But are there some days in which I'm like, you know what? It's 10 a.m. You can go. It's PJ movie day. Absolutely. That pops into my head.
Oh my goodness, it's impossible for it not to. And if they can agree on a long form movie,
oh my gosh,
that's suitable for both ages, well, then it's heaven sent. Then you get your time, and that's good. But that's, therein lies that challenge, though, sometimes. And I say all this with nothing but 100% credit to my wife, who takes care of this stuff, or has to at least interface with it when I'm out on the road 40 to 50% of the year. So that definitely levies further challenges on a household, is navigating that on your own. And she does that gracefully, and way more than I have to. So none of this is really a complaining session from me necessarily. It's just sort of a comparing of notes, I guess. And I think we always knew it would be par for the course. Sometimes theory and practice are pretty different when you arrive to them. But, and a lot of that depends on the personality of the kid. But boy, we're in it for sure. And in 6 or 7 years, we'll miss it terribly somehow. I'll probably be pacing the floor wondering what to do with myself certain days.
Yeah, it's always funny to me just noticing your phrasing around your habits. So like with your kids, you'll be like, oh, it's just Saturday. We every once in a while watch a movie. And then your wife will look at you, or someone will be like, didn't you do that the last 5 Saturdays in a row? And it's like, okay, this is no longer a special treat. This is this is just who we are now. And to understand your inertia or rhythms, to be honest with yourself of like, hey, this isn't a special treat. You do this every single day. It's like, okay, I need to discipline myself a little bit better here.
Without a doubt, you don't want to fall into just habits or bad habits like that. I don't know. I think back to my own childhood, however, and I definitely had some restrictions on TV. But my mom, like, I remember also, I was a pretty heavy TV kid. There just wasn't a ton to do in town. And if the weather was bad, or if it was just wintertime or something like that, I leaned on it pretty heavy. And a lot of it was garbage. A lot of it was, I Dream of Jeannie, and or, Starsky and Hutch, or any of that stuff. And I'm dating myself here, but nonetheless, you always want to try to tighten up some of those rules that were levied on you. But I don't know. The jury will forever be out on how much that damaged me, and I'm not the one to say.
Yeah, so, you're a little too close to the subject matter to know.
Yeah, I'm way too close to the fire. Or way too close to the painting to tell you what it actually is.
Yes.
But I'm fully accepting of any charges of that damage there, but I tend to think that the things that probably put dings in my emotional armor were less like TV and more, certain little life juncture experiences, or, deaths in the family, or just setbacks like that. I think those are the things that, without a doubt, eclipse. And maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that those things definitely hurt me more than just having access to 70s and 80s afternoon TV shows.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think media becomes like a comfort technique, right? So like, I don't know how many of my friends will rewatch episodes of like The Office or Friends whenever they don't know what else to do because it feels comfortable to them. But there's usually a catalyst where a deficit was created where you felt the need to be comforted by something. Yes. And that's where entertainment or media kind of fills that void, helps you out, however you want to phrase it.
It does. And I suppose, now that you mentioned that, there are times like I will still fall into the habit of what I used to do when I was a kiddo. My parents, I don't know how or why in the world this happened, but at age 14, they let me have a TV in my room.
Oh, yeah.
And full cable and everything. It wasn't super luxury cable, but, 20, 3 channels or something in 1985 felt like I had hit the jackpot.
Oh, yeah.
But even after a little while, I noticed myself starting to self-regulate, and it's like, okay, cool, I did this. I'm going to move over to the drum set now, or the guitar now. But friends would sometimes come over, like, oh, you always have the TV on like some sporting event and the volume's down, but you're playing music. That seems unusual. And I was like, well, does it seem unusual? I don't know. I just like have some long form running baseball game on mute, but I'm learning this song. But I notice even into adulthood at night now, I will put on, like one of the soccer matches from the day, either from La Liga or Bundesliga or something like that, or even just an obscure soccer match, like a lower level something from Holland, and just something about the movement and the pitch, everything, just something in the room while I read a book is comforting. It is indeed comforting. So I stand, I'm guilty as charged for that. But at the same time, I feel like I could, I don't have to have the direct interaction with it, I suppose. I guess that's what I'm saying. I can sort of use it as a backdrop or something.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I also will play guitar a ton with like just soccer on in the background or something like that. Having littler kids, like soccer is my favorite sport to watch because the commercial breaks don't really exist. So
Exactly.
like they aren't constantly interrupted or like looking up, and like our kids especially like don't know what a commercial break is because we don't really watch live TV. So if I try to watch an NBA game, NFL game or something like that, there's commercials like every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And every 5 minutes they're like, what is happening here? And I'm like, oh, it's how they am I gonna have to explain like revenue and no, just say it's a commercial. Just don't give a real answer.
Yeah. I mean, that is one of the reasons I kind of pushed the soccer thing on the kids. It's like there's no commercials.
Yeah. Which I have to ask, what soccer teams or what clubs do you follow? Because I'm also a soccer fan.
Yeah, I've definitely been a La Liga fan for, I don't know, 20, 25 years. So I kind of follow a couple teams through there, and I'm always happy to see them do well. I mean, I love Barcelona for who they are, and a lot of the luminaries through that organization over the years have been some of my favorites. Carlos Puyol being one of them. But then I love like Athletic Bilbao and Rayo Vallecano, neighborhood team from Madrid. So I bounce around a little bit. I like St. Pauli over in the Bundesliga.
Okay.
So I try to tune into their matches. I have a friend that has his recording studio and like kind of creative space in their stadium. And
what? That's cool. That's cool.
So they allow him to set up shop there and make his rock and roll music,
That's
which
awesome.
is really awesome. So I've kind of gravitated toward them in recent years. So at any rate, so that's my Saturday mornings, is kind of just that sound on in the house. And I don't have to see every, pass. I don't have to see every bit of it, but just that sound is sort of a Saturday or Sunday morning tradition around here.
There's some comfort or some calmness to it that like I did not anticipate.
Calming. It's part of the reason I love baseball so much.
Yeah.
I mean, what did Willie Mays say about baseball? That for all of its pastoral nature and sereneness, it's actually violence under wraps.
Yeah.
And I feel much the same about the sport of soccer in so many ways, and I find parallels, and that each of them are sort of their own styles of chess matches on very well manicured pieces of grass. I can't fight with this at all. It's wonderful. There's a ballet to it that I love.
Yeah. I love watching games in person because like just to be not too nerdy, but like the battles between the back line, because whenever I played soccer growing up, I always played defense because I'm like 6'4". I have no technical skills, but I'm very good at getting in the way. As my wife will tell you. And so watching like the back line and the offensive people like battling for the entire game, you don't see that in the camera shot the entire time, but to actually watch those battles or to see like how big like center backs actually are, it's just like, oh, there's a constant fluidity to this game that you don't pick up on if you just don't pay attention. But the second you notice that, you can't, like, it's like listening to a music mix and hearing like an instrument hidden in a layer, and then you can never hear the song the same way again.
You're exactly right. And I think that if you're able to go in person, sometimes it's fun to sit behind the net and up a little bit so you can see how everything kind of plays out from that angle, which of course is totally different looking than what you see on television. I think the first couple of Barcelona matches I went to over there, we had seats way up high and behind the net, and it just gives you this whole new appreciation for everything that's happening off the ball. but also from a completely different angle.
Yep. I have a friend who, for Nashville SC, has like middle of the field, row G, like where the VAR booth is. He's like row G behind that. And I was always appreciative if he let me come sit with him at games, because if there was a call, you could hear the player scream at the ref, like to basically sit there and be like, that's a handball, ref. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I never thought I would hear players scream. Okay, I'm this close to the field. It's a really cool experience.
It's amazing. There were times in the early eras of the early years of the Dallas Stars, before the honeymoon was really on. I was living in Dallas from 92 to 95. And this is before they picked up their first Stanley Cup. Back then, people were trying to make heads or tails out of hockey in the cities. The tickets were pretty easy to come by. It wasn't too tough. So we would score tickets behind the benches. Dude. And to hear everybody barking at each other and cussing at each other coming off the ice. I mean, hockey is just beautiful and wonderful to watch in person anyway. But to get all that extra all the extra sensory information and actually hear them yapping at each other was the best. It was so much fun.
Yep. I've gone to like 3 Nuggets games since moving out here.
Yeah.
It's only been like up in the tier, higher areas and stuff so far. But at some point in time to sit like courtside for an NBA game, I feel like would be, because like, once again, I'm 6'4", I'm not a small person. And I know I would look small next to every single person on that court.
Oh my goodness. Some of us from the 400 unit had the fortune and the luck to go to a couple of NBA games last season. We had right behind the bench for a Bulls game. And then we were at game 1 of the Nuggets Timberwolves series last May. Sadler and I went to that one, and we were down in the VIP section. We didn't know what to make of it. People just kept bringing us drinks, and we were so confused by this blanket of hospitality that we were just under. But it was amazing it gives you a whole new appreciation, and you do realize how giant some of these individuals are. It is amazing, the mobility and the skill and the speed that they can still possess and be 11'7" or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I have trouble moving at this size. How do you get that much bigger and be that graceful?
It's just incredible.
I do also love that you guys in the 400 unit still have such a presence to you of being like, what, you want us to be the VIP area? What, you want to bring us? All of you guys seem so just wait, you brought this drink for me? Are you sure?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was definitely a stranger in a strange land. I was like, well,
I mean, I'll take it. I have the ticket, so I know I'm eligible for it. But are you sure?
It was incredible. Sure? I wanted the game to go into quintuple overtime just so we could hang out. It was wonderful.
That's cool. For sports stuff, are any of your kids into sports, or have they come to you with games or anything?
A little bit, it varies. Our middle kiddo, Hazel, she'll get into, she loves the Cincinnati Bengals for some reason.
Okay. Yeah.
And I respect that. I think that is a very admirable, not necessarily bandwagon-y sort of approach. And I dig that, but also I think she's learning that you sign up for the long haul, and to be, you got to go through the good and the bad. And even though they were in the Super Bowl a few years ago, they haven't really sniffed it since. And so I think now she's getting a little bit of realization that, oh man, to hitch your wagon to a team definitely means it's a long road sometimes. And so, but for the most part, I don't know. I mean, I think Jack appreciates it. It's entertaining for him while he's there, but he's not particularly obsessive about a team or anything like that. So I'm the one that's probably the true sports nerd, and that's been hardwired into me since I was a little dude.
I didn't care about sports until I went to college, and then I went to Belmont, so that's how I ended up in Nashville, and that was a really strong connection point for my dad. It was a connection to my Midwestern roots and to my dad and my brother, and without that I probably still wouldn't have cared about sports. But that's why I got into it, was noticing my dad and brother always have these conversations and being like, I'll start paying attention, and then falling in love with football and more in basketball and stuff. So I love sports because of the way it can connect you. I'm one of 3 kids. I'm the only one who didn't go to Indiana University for college. So whenever IU plays a basketball game, the family group thread is just constant trash talking the other team the entire time. And sports bring out such a unique form of connection between you and other people that like other things can't. It's really cool.
They definitely do. And that can happen on a microscopic level with just, your kid or something like that. And that happens also with regard to just community, like community happiness and bonding. Backing up, now that I do think about it, Hazel and I will sneak out to an Austin FC game at least once a year.
That's cool. Yeah.
And she really does love that experience. I mean, that's always a big deal. And so I would definitely say that is a focus around here. That's probably the most intense focus of any of our kids right now, but she's always wanting to go out there. And when she gets there, she's not sitting down. I mean, she's into it the whole time, and that's pretty fun to watch. But you're right. I think it is sometimes a familial bonding thing, and those are our reasons for kind of putting our roots down with a team. And I have a very odd allegiance and long-running allegiance to like back to the late 70s with Tennessee Volunteers football.
Okay.
As a product of my dad was born there and he graduated from there, and he would take me to games a couple of times a year when the Volunteers would play 2 or 3 games in Memphis at the Liberty Bowl. And that was just a way of bringing the game over to Memphis, the east side of the state or the west side of the states, in case, a lot of people had trouble getting tickets to Neyland Stadium, much less making it all the way to Knoxville. So I thought it was kind of a cool thing to have access to Vols football. So yeah, I spent some afternoons there, and really like I've kind of upheld that over the years. Like I still, for better or for worse, I root for them and watch them, and that's just how that originated. But I get asked that stuff all the time because I do have such weird allegiances. My allegiance with the Green Bay Packers started in the late 70s, and because it was like the only NFL city that I couldn't really find on the map. And I started investigating how they were built and how they came together, and it was like, oh man, this is like kind of like the punk rock NFL team.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
I got to go with this team. And so it's not a regional thing at all. It's just it's more the story, I think.
Yeah. Now, being from Evansville, Don Mattingly is from there.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we had a lot of like you're either a Cards fan, a Reds fan, a Cubs fan, or a Yankees fan. And always like, we're in like until I realized that's why people were Yankees fans. I was always like, why are there so many Yankees hats? Like we're like about as Midwest as you can get. Why are we cheering for a massive city? And then it connected in my head, like, hey, he's from here.
It's a town boy, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I painted him a few years ago, and it was for a friend of mine's father from Evansville.
Really? Okay.
Who I guess knew Don back in the day. They knew each other, and so that was kind of a hometown story. I was like,
that's cool.
Sure. But she was like, yeah, definitely put some focus on the Evansville thing, and so I can see that. I mean, Evansville anyway seems like it could be sort of a cross-pollination of numerous baseball allegiances.
Yes, very much so, yes.
Which, Reds, Cubs, White Sox, Cardinals makes sense, but then you throw the Matt Mattingly thing in there.
Yep.
Of course, yeah.
I don't know if anyone is willingly a White Sox fan, but I don't want to talk too much.
That's okay. I've got a couple of White Sox friends that are almost at this point afraid to they don't want to talk about it.
I do think it's fascinating because I know like you guys have actually played Evansville a couple times, and like even Bob Dylan has played Evansville now. So I think it's cool to see like as a touring musician what cities you guys go to now, because growing up I would have never thought a band of your caliber would have ever shown up in Evansville, Indiana.
Yeah, we played the Victory, I think.
Yeah,
was it the Victory Theater a little over a year ago. It was wonderful. We were wrapping up a tour. But it was a great stop. It was super fun. I don't know if we're going back there anytime soon, but we are getting into some cities and places that I've, like, even over 35 years of touring, that I've never, for whatever reason, gotten to. It's just nice that even after so many years, you can still get to some new places and find some new sidewalks to walk. So I don't know. I'm still about as excited about it as I've ever been, really.
That's cool. Whenever to talk about your touring life, like I think Sadler told me like last year he played like 100 shows or something like that. Like you are very much a touring musician. What do you do in those times to still like stay connected to your family, stay connected to your kids whenever you aren't physically around as much?
Do my best to just get on the phone, and
Yeah.
I'm not a real big FaceTime person, but just
Yeah.
like chat on the phone, like make sure you don't let too much time go by, and or get them out for a few days on the road.
Cool.
For instance, like this coming or next weekend, we're in Denver for
Mhm.
2 shows, and then we have Red Rocks as well. And it's like, well, if we're posted up for a little while, it's worth the flight tickets. Like, let's just get them up there and hang for the weekend because we're sort of able to work out our satellite out of one hotel
Yeah.
for 4 shows, I believe.
Hmm.
So that to me always, well, if I look at the calendar and see that, it's like, okay, well, let's see if we can get the family out for a couple of days, and that helps break up the absent time. And because a 1 weeker or a 10-day thing is one thing, but you start getting into the tours that get into like the 3 week range,
Yeah.
and that's when I start. I don't know. It feels like a long time anymore, and
Definitely.
it's a lot to put on a household. So that's a
Hmm.
point where I start looking at the calendar and figuring like, where can we hang out? Where can we fly you
Yeah.
all in for a show or two?
Yeah. Now, I mean, my wife travels for work, and like she doesn't usually, but there are sometimes where she has to do like a 4-day or 5-day trip to do like a conference. And yeah, at the end of those 5 days, our kids, you can tell they feel the deficit of her presence.
Without a doubt.
And the thought of like, yeah, to be a touring musician, that Cam is gone for 3 weeks, and then to get like, you get out of the rhythm of the home life so much. I'm sure there has to be like a day or two of adjustment for everyone before you can feel like it's a normal flow again.
Without question. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't take long for the rules to change, even
Yeah.
in subtle ways.
Yes.
And there are times where I get home and I just want to hang out and throw a bunch of Starbursts on the floor and just like it's time to celebrate. And it's just like, hey, wait a
Yeah.
second.
You
It's
can't be
not
doing that,
like that.
man.
You
Yeah.
can't be doing that.
Nope.
And so, you learn that quick, but you're right. I mean, the climate can change in even the most subtle ways, and
Hmm.
their development can change in the most subtle ways, even over just a few weeks sometimes. And so there are inevitably some new tweaks and some new things to adapt to once you walk back in the door. And also just the dynamic of having both parents around versus one. And one thing that we noticed, I guess, last year is that if if my wife is on her own with the kids, or if she was on a trip and I was on my own with the kids, they didn't quite bicker as much. I don't know why this is, but they just weren't like nitpicking at each other. But there are times now, if I'll get picked up from the airport or she'll come home, and they'll sort of jabbing at each other a little bit. And there is, I can't get into the scientific or psychological nature of that, but it is a phenomenon that we've noticed over time. And it doesn't last long, but just the balance is new. Like everything, you've got a whole nother body around and another source of input for rules or regulations or
Hmm.
screen time or whatever the thing is. So with that comes a whole new layer of energy and kind of radio frequencies to deal with, so to speak. So it's complicated. It's always a work in progress, and some of those tours or transitions go smoother than others, but we are constantly working on it, and we're lucky. Everybody's healthy and doing
Yeah.
fine, but you just want to keep the waters as calm as you can.
Yeah, it's as the parent who's at home, and my wife is the one, because that happens to us also, honestly. And it's a weird thing to like. It's you also have to. I'm very big on like trying to understand my tone of voice whenever I say something, because yeah, my wife will come home and be like, "Oh, were they fighting this much while I was gone?" And
Yeah.
like to not say. My first thought is to be like, "Oh, they weren't when you weren't here," and it's like
Yeah.
that's there's no polite way to say
No, there's not.
that, and there's not.
No.
So that's whenever you start to realize, like, actually, no, I think the energy is just different. I'm sure there's some repressed emotions of you being gone. But like, yeah, no, absolutely. They don't like, and then she'll be like, oh, should I not travel? Is like, blah, blah, blah. It goes down a whole rabbit hole. I'm like, oh, they learned, like, I think we're all just readjusting to being together again. They aren't like this whenever you're gone. I think this is just the readjustment period. But it took me a couple of times to learn that language
It's hard to word
because
that in a way. I mean, it's hard to word that in a way that doesn't sound insensitive.
exactly. Yes. Or like, I don't have resentment that you're gone, but the way I just said that sounds like I have resentment that you were gone.
That's
So,
right. And then you find yourself backpedaling or having to
yes.
clarify, and you're inherently already dealing with someone who is probably coming in the door tired, understandably so, and just happy to be home and wanting to come home to hopefully a peaceful and clean household or whatever. And so it's all things to keep in mind for sure. Everybody's tired, and you're tired for different reasons. Like My wife will be exhausted from manning the ship for 2 weeks and handling every single thing around here. And then I'm tired from being out there and not sleeping well forever, or, playing 20 shows. And, you have to take all that into account and be really careful and respectful of one another's feelings and where you're coming from. And I think we're doing pretty well with that now. There were definitely some growing pains that first summer that I was with the 400 unit, because I had not toured at that rate in a long time. Uh, I was touring, saying, I won't say far less, but the tours were broken up a little further apart, and that particular summer of 23 was pretty fast and furious, and even the home time wasn't really wasn't much home time, because even if it's 5 days of home time, well, the first day you're just kind of unpacking and readjusting and learning how to be a family again and doing laundry and catching up on chores. And then day 2, 3, and 4, maybe you're doing some kind of family cool stuff. Maybe the kids are in school. I don't know. But then by day 5, you're doing laundry and getting ready to go again. And mentally, and by my own admission, mentally, I'm already like partially out the door, because I'm just getting ready for the next 2 or 3 weeks to come. Was it really, yes, it was time at home, but was it really a recharge time?
Yeah.
That's often debatable. And again, none of it's a complaint. We signed up for it. But we're still human, and we still have to care for each other, and we still want to do well for each other and be as good of a teammate as we possibly can be. So with that, I think comes the very regular and understandable maintenance and trying to keep that going as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, I think it's not so fun to get older and try to figure out. I think what recharges you is extremely elusive. So I think some days, yeah, man, sitting down with headphones on, listen to a vinyl or something like that, I'm energized. Other times, I sit there the entire time like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So also to know your own spirit, inertia, or whatever in that day, to be like, I know I need to recharge, but how the heck do I do this? How big is my deficit, and what does it take to get back to it?
That's right.
It's like freaking hard, man.
It is.
I'm not good at it.
It's a challenge. A friend of mine posted it's like a meme the other day, and she's like a real self-starting, incredible like creator, but she's a maker and self-employed. And I think it said something like, I need to relax. And then the second frame was, I need to relax and somehow remember how to still be productive. But, like, how can I relax and be productive? And
Yes.
Sometimes that is a constant, that's just a constant challenge.
Yeah, it feels so different when you have kids, because like let's say I go to a concert or something like that at night and leave the family, like it kind of needs to be a good concert. Like I don't want to disrupt all of what we have going on here for me to go to something that I didn't really care about that much.
Without a doubt.
It needs to be worth it, which also then puts a weird pressure on you guys to perform, to be like, you better be good, because there's opportunity cost here.
But I get it. I mean, it's, if you're going to take an evening and bust up the whole scene to do something like that, like, you got to really ask yourself, is this going to be worth it? Because I'm going to disrupt dinner schedules, and the help around here is going to be half, and I'm going to get home late and then get up early and be tired and get the kids to school. And how will this affect energy levels and such tomorrow? There's just a lot to think about now. And unfortunately, we can't be quite as casual about that perhaps as we once could. And that's all right. That's just par for the course.
Yeah. When do you think bands are going to start? Their headliners will go on at like 6 p.m. instead of like 10 p.m. That's the question all of us getting in our 30s and 40s are asking, is like, I want to see the 400 unit, but you guys go on at like 9, or is it more like 9 ball? I'm going to drink a coffee. All right, here we go.
I mean, I will say these recent dates, even for us, a few of them have been so early. It's like, whoa, man, this is wild early, like 7:15.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have openers on these current runs, which is definitely, that's moving some things up without a doubt. And 8 feels pretty optimum. Like an 8 to 10 p.m. show feels pretty great. But there were a couple on these recent 2 runs that I think were as early as 7:15, and even that was like, man, I'm not quite in rock and roll mode just yet.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to like stuff down this like snack from catering and get some clean pants real quick, and we are literally like 19 minutes from showtime. So even that can be a little jarring. But backing up to your question, I don't, it's hard because so often the venues can dictate those things,
Yeah, that makes
especially
sense.
with like smaller clubs and stuff like that. Very, very fortunately, for the greater part, it feels like in our camp we're able to call those shots. So
That's cool.
the current shows they're not quite 6 p.m., but they're at least, like 8, and that feels pretty good because
Better?
I mean
Yeah.
the way that I would run shows, or that I would, the way that I would approach things, bookings back in the Centro-matic days when we were doing our thing was like,
Mhm.
is the show you're playing a show you would go to? And if the
Yeah.
answer's, hopefully the answer is yes. But if the start time, man, sometimes back in those days we wouldn't go on till 11:30.
Yeah.
And that on a Tuesday when you've got friends or fans that want to come to the show that have kiddos and stuff, I wouldn't go. And so there's your gut check. And when you get home from those tours, it's like, well, how do we make these adjustments to make sure that we are playing shows that I would actually go to?
Yeah.
And I think
It
it's a fair test. I think that's
it
a
is.
fair question.
I mean, anyone who creates, if you're looking at the art you're creating and you're like, I don't like this art, why would you then assume, well, other people might? No, like, be proud of what you're doing.
Precisely.
Create art that you yourself would like, as not in any selfish or narcissistic tone meant.
No, not at all. I think it's an
But
honest question. But there were times we'd be standing on stage and I don't know, Rockford, Illinois or Buffalo or
yeah,
something on a Monday night, and it's snowy out and we're just setting up to play a quote unquote headlining set,
yeah,
at 11:30, and it's
yeah.
just like, dude, I probably couldn't make this show, so why am I
No,
supposed to be upset when only 35 or 40 people show up? I don't have a
yeah,
right to be upset about this because I
no,
don't think I could hang.
nope. I get it. So, Will, how we end every episode is we ask every guest a series of 5 questions. It's not rapid fire, so you have time to think about it.
Okay.
The first question is, do you have any backup names for your kids? Like, did you have any names you almost named your kids?
Yeah, we definitely had a couple backup names. No doubt about it. Those memories are pretty foggy. They're pretty back there. But yes, there were a couple.
There were.
Yeah, I was interested, and we were interested in naming Hazel Annie
Okay.
and maybe Clem. I really loved the name Satchel because I love Satchel Paige. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, there's just a few. So
Okay. Sweet. Next question. Do you have a favorite TV or movie dad?
this isn't I'll think of something in an hour and
You will. You will.
inevitably be crushed. But in a way, like the Michael Keaton and Mr. Mom
Yes.
was like, that one kind of hits home on certain days. I don't know if it's my favorite, but that character and that a lot of those situations have resonated quite heavily over the years.
That's awesome. Next question. Do you have a favorite or go-to replacement curse word? Like whenever you know you need to say a curse word or like you stub your toe, but the kids are around and you don't want to curse, do you have a word that you think of first?
I should. I am not good at that though. And they have learned a whole dictionary of words just due to my inherent clumsiness and frustration. So unfortunately, I'm not terribly good about routing around the pile up in front of me. I just dive
Yes.
straight into it and I say the word. And I'm not proud of this.
It is a much more common answer than you would think. Some dads have like dad gummit or something like that.
Yeah.
Some dads are like, oh, I wish I was that good of a dad, but no, I just say the word and I try not to
I
say it as
do.
loud as I can.
Me yelling dadgummit or fudge is like, that's just going to make me even more mad than what just happened. And so I'm depriving myself of a certain satisfaction and maybe even mental health by yelling frick or something.
Yes. Yep.
I can't do it. It's just not there for me.
You're kind of out the middle, man. I respect it. I
I
appreciate it.
commend all those that can do it and say damage, like my
Yeah,
friend,
yeah.
my bandmate's mom used to always scream damage, and I'm not wired that way. I'm like a 70s dad in a way.
Yeah.
It's just like what you see is what you get, and
Next question. Do you have a favorite kids toy or activity, like an activity you do with your kids that like you really enjoy doing with them?
I really love making art and painting and drawing. I mean, that's just like, that's the best. And sometimes like like the velvet doodles or like the really, really tiny, a good friend of ours is a tattoo artist and he has these great coloring books that are quite detailed, and just to sit down with some fine tip markers and do that for 30 minutes or an hour I love it. It's quiet, it's therapeutic. We all kind of get something cool out of it, and you're making cool art together. So that's always my favorite thing. I do love throwing the football or the baseball, or kicking the soccer ball with Hazel. She's really good about doing that stuff. But those would probably be the my two main things. Sometimes skateboarding,
Oh, okay.
But at age 54,
Not so
I'm
good.
not sure I'm just not totally confident in my current insurance plan.
Yeah.
And like, understandably, like, like, I don't think Jason really wants me skateboarding a lot right
Not
now.
so much. No. I mean, you're supposed to reach your deductible every year, right? That's the
Yeah,
goal
I
of the
think that's
insurance
right.
plan, right? Yeah.
So
That's
I'm
how it
sticking just
works.
to like making art, like
Yeah.
drawing and painting and throwing the ball or whatever. That's
Yeah.
mild.
It's so funny to be 37 and like go to pick a kid up and like get a twinge in my back, and then a week later it finally feels better.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine adding more years to my body and
Oh, yeah.
expecting my recovery time to get better.
No, that's not something that happens.
Not how it works.
No, I mean, I had a certain occurrence. I mean, I'm a regular runner and I still stick to it. I'm pretty religious about it. But I had a certain moment last year at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa that started with, "Hey Sadler, let's race," and
No.
it didn't end well because I was just wearing crappy shoes, and
Yep.
within 4 strides, I had aggravated a calf muscle or something.
Yep.
And had it on ice in the crew ring.
Yep.
It's just like, I can't take me anywhere, man.
And then they're like, "Hey, Will, can you sit in on the kit tonight?" And you're like,
Yeah.
"Well, I can't use the kick drum. So is the kick drum important to this?"
And also as a stadium show, so like the stage is like 3 miles from the
Oh,
dressing
yeah, of
room.
course.
So I'm
Yeah.
just hobbling through the concourse. I mean, I got everything I deserved. I got
Yep.
everything I freaking deserved. But
That's
I will
what you get
back
for
up.
being youthful.
I'll say one more thing that I do love doing with the kids is jamming. I mean, we have a music
Cool.
room, and there are amps always set up, and it's just a matter of making the time and kind of getting going on it. But it is inevitably so fun just to be in a garage band with one or any of them that want to play. It's just cool to play covers and stuff like that. So that's another biggie.
Yeah.
Whenever we
Yeah.
can.
I'm not going to act like, having played guitar for like 20 years, the thought of if my kids ever want to play a musical instrument, is that a dream? Of
Yeah.
course that's a dream.
Yeah.
Why would that not be a dream?
Well, we've got, I mean, part of the reason we moved to the country is we were becoming very loud. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got a drummer farm kind of going on right now.
That's cool.
With our oldest and our middle. So, it behooved us. It suited us well to get out of town because I don't think we were making a whole lot of friends with the neighbors by that point.
That makes sense. All right. And last question.
Yeah.
Do you have a moment of your kid's life that you're most excited to be a part of?
I mean, it feels really good getting to go see our oldest play shows at cool
Mhm.
venues. His band opened for Jack White a few months ago,
Cool.
which
Yeah.
was a real neat occurrence in the family for sure. And then our middle kiddo, I took her into the recording studio back in January as a Christmas gift. I bought her 2 full studio days because she had a bunch of songs written. And so I wanted to see if we could get those down, but more so I was just interested in seeing how she handled the length of a studio day,
Yeah.
all the decision making that really goes into making recordings, sometimes understanding that an idea may not work and you kind of got to back out of that cul-de-sac and
Mhm.
keep going back down the main road. But she knocked out 6 songs, full instrumentation, like basically just went instrument to instrument, drums, guitars, bass, sang all the vocals.
Nice.
And she got 6 songs fully tracked in 2 days, and we're sitting on an EP right now, and I got to get it mastered. But otherwise, like, to pay witness to that, just to quietly be a fly on the wall in the studio as she managed that and realized like she was kind of a natural studio rat was
That's cool.
it was a really proud moment. I mean, I got to say there were times where I would hear her singing a lyric or a line and it got choked up. It was a
Yeah.
really intense thing to look upon. And so those are just a couple of examples. Right?
That's really awesome. No, to watch your kid be confidently creating something is like a gift,
Yeah. I
There's
mean,
nothing better.
I didn't think we'd be having these conversations at age 14, but last
Yeah.
night, just on the drive to the movie, she's like, "Well, so how's the mastering going with the record? When is artwork
That's
due?"
cool.
And it's like, now this is some stuff I can get into.
That's
This is
cool.
fun.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired of asking you not to be on your phone and stuff. Let's talk about putting some music out in the world.
Yeah.
Now you're talking my language.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. You're like, I don't understand Minecraft at all, but I do understand mastering and all of this process.
I don't know anything about what I'm about to go watch, but we can sit here and talk about making records for an hour if you want. That's totally cool.
That's awesome. Well, the only other thing is just self-promotion. I mean, we didn't even talk about you recording a new album and all that, but like, if we want to follow you on Instagram, find your music, all that good stuff.
Goodness, I think it's Will Johnson TX on Instagram.
I think that's right.
And then I can't remember Facebook right now. Maybe it's Will Johnson Music. I'm not sure. You can tell how often I'm hanging out there.
Right? Yeah.
But at any rate, yeah, it's out there in the wild. It's there. But yeah, a new record came out a couple weeks ago, so there's been some talking about that, and that's nice. It was kind of fell together in a unconventional way, and that it started as 4-track recordings just made here in this very room that I'm sitting in.
Yeah.
And my dear friend and bandmate and co-collaborator Britton Beisenhurst sort of took those recordings and ran with them and added a bass and synths and certain keyboards and even some drums here and there, and we just saw it into a record over the course of a few months. And
cool.
It was little more than just the expense of our personal time and one 90-minute cassette, literally. So we saved it. We made it for a pretty affordable price.
Nice. That's cool. Your album art on that is also like fantastic. That does look like a print. Like if I walked into a room and someone told me that was a vinyl, I'd be like, wait, that's album art? That looks like a intentionally created print.
That's the cool thing about it. It's got a double use sort of thing, but that's my dear friend Adam Young, and that's the second cover he's done for me over the last year and a half, but he's one of my favorite artists and happens to be one of my best buds.
Yeah. That's cool. That's awesome.
So thanks for flying the flag there. I appreciate it.
That's right, man. Yeah. Thanks for making good music. That's the hope of this podcast, man.
It's amazing. It's a great angle. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. I was like, man, I know a lot about being an imperfect dad. This is perfect. I know so much about being an imperfect dad that finally,
Yes. Yeah. You can finally have the space to be like, okay, so I messed this up. I did this 50% correctly.
I think I know far more about that than I do my own recent record. Like now we can actually now we can talk about some stuff I really know.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really encouraging to be able to talk to like you and Sadler and to people I've watched play on stage for years and be like, oh, you actually want to talk about this stuff. It's encouraging. It inspires me to keep at it and all that. So,
I mean, if we can't laugh at ourselves in the process or in the face of it, of course we don't want to be careless, but if you just can't if you can't have laughs in the middle of it, especially in this world and this time, then what's it all worth, So,
yeah, no, man, a lot of life is a lot of uphill battles. And if I always tell myself if I'm not willing to laugh about something, then I probably have some more processing to do on the subject.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my barometric check of like, do you want to laugh about this? No, I'm still pretty mad about it.
Yeah.
All right. You got to process that, man, because it's going to keep happening. So you got to learn how to crack some jokes or
that's
you're going to
exactly
become
right.
a jerk.
I think that's a very healthy way to go about that too. I think that's very, very wise.
Yep. Yes. But anyway, thanks for being a good hang, Will. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate it.
This has been really enjoyable. I appreciate it too.
Perfect. Thanks,
right.
Will. Have a good week.
Take care. You too.
Thank you for listening to the episode.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Imperfect Dads Podcast.
And make sure to subscribe and rate us 5 stars wherever you listen to us.
The music is provided by the Wogfeathers.
And all episodes are produced and edited by me.
Make sure to tune in Mondays for new episodes.